This old soldier stands 40 inches of wood and metal, its name whispered among gun nuts and history buffs alike, the SKS Type 56. In Russian, it means Simonov's self-loading carbine because it was dreamed up by Sergei Simonov in the Soviet Union during the 1940s. Picture its granddaddy days, a big wooden stocked rifle replacing the bolt-action Mosin Nagant. Over 2.7 million were made in Tula and Ijevsk, with millions more churned out under license, especially in China. It was sturdy and reliable, if a bit ungainly by modern standards. Fun fact, its fixed 10-round magazine can only be topped off with stripper clips, a blast from the past. In its prime, it even had a folding bayonet. Welcome to mid-century warfare.
But the SKS didn't stay Soviet for long. China grabbed the design and cranked out their own version called the Type 56 starting in the mid-1950s. Call it the Chinese clone or younger sibling. Either way, they built millions more. It sported a spike bayonet under the barrel. Remember, no interchangeable parts with AK magazines, just a fixed mag and bayonet. The Chinese Type 56 even got rugged jungle stocks to survive humidity and termites, earning nicknames like the Vietnam stock among collectors. Essentially, two economic miracles, Soviet steel and Chinese labor, combined to litter the world with these rifles. Suddenly, the SKS wasn't just a Soviet relic, but a Chinese one too.
Fast forward to the Vietnam War, and there it is in everybody's scope. Viet Cong guerrillas wielding Chinese-built SKS carbines. It was the guerrilla rifle of the conflict, one of the primary arms of the Viet Cong. American GIs saw it so often in the rice paddies that U.S. training units actually bought captured SKSs to simulate the enemy in exercises. Imagine that! Your Army rifle range is set up by a secret Charlie company with SKSs to make sure GI Bob can ID one. When the war ended, returning vets proudly stuffed some SKSs into their duffel bags as war trophies. Nothing says Vietnam veteran like a steel 7.62 39 rifle with a folding bayonet sticking out of the back of the closet.
For years, the SKS was rare in the USA, just war souvenirs for experts. Then, beginning in 1988, the floodgates opened. Tons of Chinese Type 56 surplus poured in, followed in the 90s by a trickle of Soviet SKS. Suddenly, you could buy one for the price of a beer at a garage sale. In fact, by the early 1990s, these rifles retailed for as little as $70. ATF analysts noted that no modern factory could make a gun that cheap, but the ex-communist stockpilers had tons of them with zero manufacturing cost. Over the next decade, millions of these carbines landed on American soil. The SKS went from, what's that, to, sure, want two in wooden rack, practically overnight.
Enter the American gun show circuit, where the Type 56 is like a regional celebrity on the discount shelf. You'll find entire tables labeled Chinese SKS, bayonet included, NFA, or SKS 180 or best offer. It's the ultimate bargain rifle. Heavy, old school, and cheap enough to entice even the first-time buyer. Collectors argue over bring-back paperwork and matching dates as if it were a 1965 Mustang, all while newcomers sniff the cosmoline off the stock like mysterious perfume. Ironically, despite being obsolete in modern combat, the SKS is treated like a vintage treasure. Cranky veterans brag it killed the same commie as their buddies did with an AK-47, and young hipsters carry it ironically to punk shows. It's like vinyl records or Polaroids for gun nerds. Obsolete tech used for street cred and nostalgia, guaranteed to start arguments at the barbecue. In the States, nearly any firearm can become a talisman of freedom, and the SKS is no exception. On the range and the airwaves alike, you hear Second Amendment invocations about hunting rifles and militias. And guess what? The SKS checks both boxes. Legally, it's just a semi-auto, so technically fine, but try telling that to people lugging wood stocks to Capitol rallies. It's funny, some folks wave flag decals on their pickups while strapping this heavy, century-old carbine to the tailgate. They'll say, this is what the Founding Fathers had in mind, as if the framers sketched out George Washington with an SKS bayonet. And yet, unlike the modern AR-15 tactical weenies, SKS owners often come off as nostalgics, waving an ancient rifle like it's a family heirloom. It's patriotism mixed with irony. My grandpappy's rifle survived the jungle, and it'll survive liberal politicians too.
Getting ammunition into this thing is a whole scene. Forget detachable box mags. The SKS has a fixed 10-round magazine. To top it up, you use stripper clips, the collectible charger clips like in old war movies. It's quaint, yes, but not lightning fast. In fact, when Israel evaluated SKS rifles after the Six-Day War, they said, nice gun, but loading at night with these stripper clips was a nightmare. That sums it up. You feel very retro, trying not to drop bullets in the dirt. Watch me fill up this rifle like a vintage cereal dispenser. In practical terms, each reload is a short drill. Flip open the bolt, clip in 5 rounds per side, slam it home. It's charmingly analog, but when your buddy's tossing in a 30-round AR-15 mag in one motion, you realize you've just played Operation Bayonet Bay.
Let's talk feel. At 8.5 pounds loaded, the SKS is solid, not as light as today's polymer wonder guns. It's like carrying a chunk of hardwood and steel. You'll notice it in your arms after a couple magazines. The stock and handguard are wood, often finished in that warm brown left from war. Some fans love it like a fine shotgun. Others call it a nostalgia board. Grandpa used to say it was finely made Russian birch, a collector might chirp. It certainly soaks up recoil. Those 8 pounds act like a shock absorber when you fire, but don't expect muzzle flash comedy with this beast. The iron sights are basic. Don't call it a sniper, call it a country doctor. In any case, pointing one feels like holding a rifle from a John Wayne film. Substantial, unyielding, and with that classic bayonet rolled under the barrel.
Ah, yes, that bayonet, a flourish straight out of the 1950s. All military SKS rifles had a bayonet attached under the barrel. The Soviet SKS originally had a folding blade, but the Chinese Type 56 mid-60s onward famously had a spike-type bayonet. Imagine being that infantryman. Bullets used up, flip the bayonet up, and start playing medieval. It's dramatic and impractical in today's world, but the presence of the blade up front gives the SKS a certain panache. At gun shows, you'll see these rifles displayed like popcorn makers that come with a built-in spear. Good for hunting deer or reinvigorating on guard in your backyard, someone will say. In truth, the bayonet is mostly unused, more a symbol of Soviet ingenuity and cold-blooded humor than a regular field tool. Still, you can't deny it. A rifle plus sword combo is the coolest knife/shovel/gun hybrid you never asked for.
The SKS's presence in American culture is a bit like a punchline and a badge of honor rolled into one. You'll meet two kinds of SKS people, the hipsters and the Bubbas. Hipsters love the SKS as the ultimate retro commie rifle, a fixed mag fellow traveler to their man bun. They might even decorate it with bumper stickers like "Made in China," by design. Meanwhile, the Bubbas, they're the DIY crowd. Some Bubba owner adds a homemade high-capacity mag mod or snaps off the bayonet lug, desperately trying to make it an assault rifle. Newsflash, if you rip off parts of a fixed mag rifle, it still won't be full auto. In between are the purists, guys who just tuck the whole contraption in their closet, cradling it like it's an antique violin. They enjoy telling newbies how it once toppled colonial empires and now quietly tops deer. Through it all, the SKS straddles worlds, a workhorse rifle that somehow became a joke in the gun world and a collector's darling simultaneously.
Take it out to the range on a Saturday. You'll hear it go clunk as that bolt slams forward, and you'll feel it pull back under each shot. New shooters often grin at the recoil being so tame, thanks to that weight and the 7.62 by 39 round. You can hit a silhouette or a soda can out to a couple hundred yards easily enough, but don't expect winning precision competitions. Iron sights mean lining up the hooded post with a little white dot, all 300 meters of it, and ping, there's your shot. Some owners will laugh and say it's not an M4, but it's also not a musket from Gettysburg. Practically, it's a sturdy, simple shooter, reliable after centuries of soldiering, but today it's more nostalgic target filler. Gun control hawks love to cite the SKS in debates because it has an external look of a military rifle, even though it's just a decade-limited mag semi-auto. And the skittish neighbors, they'll say, "I saw a man with a bayonet in his backyard," and panic, never knowing it's just Denzel Washington reenacting Red Dawn with aluminum cans. So here we are, winding down this tale of wood and steel. The SKS Type 56 is no longer standard military issue anywhere, but in the US, it marches on in gun safes, collector displays, and faintly charming anecdotes. It's like that old veteran who still shows up at reunions wearing last decade's uniform. You remember him, maybe shake your head, but he's still around. Americans will continue to cradle it as proof of Second Amendment freedom or as a relic of bad old wars. At gun shows, it'll sit among AR clones, floating like a free radical in a sea of polymer. Some will love its simplicity, some will scoff at its obsolescence, and everyone will make jokes about stripper clips and bayonets. In the end, this rifle's life has been full. From the icy steppes of Russia to Vietnam's jungles, from dusty armories to your grandpa's closet. A controversial comrade, it stands as a reminder that history doesn't retire, it reloads. And as any American with a sense of humor and a love of irony will tell you, it may be an old Soviet-designed rifle, but right here in these United States, it's become a uniquely American curiosity.